Today I'm going to talk about another gentleman, and he's a mathematical physicist. We call him mathemagicians. His name is Nick Lucid. And the question is, how lucid is Mr. Nick? Okay, let's find out. Okay, this is his brief biography. I say he's Curly look-alike. You know, Three Stooges? Looks pretty much like him. He talks like him. If you hear the sound of his voice, that sounds like Curly. Maybe doesn't have that New York, New Jersey accent. But yeah, he talks. He's got the same pitch, I think. Anyways, he's got a master's in mathematics. He says he got it at the University of Crazy. His own words, by the way. Okay, UC, not UCLA, just UC. Okay, University of Crazy. He's got a YouTube channel rightly called The Science Asylum. And I have to believe that that alone gives me an idea that Mr. Lucid is not a dumb guy out there. He's got some intelligence. He recognizes it's all crazy. That's all. In fact, he calls his followers crazies, right? He realizes science out there is quite crazy, and I think he has this intuition that something is wrong out there. But you know, he's trying to make some money. He's trying to hit the big time, and you know, he's trying to get there to places to people like Neil Tyson and Michio Kaku and Brian Greene and all these guys. So you know, they try to get up there, and so that's commendable. Nothing wrong with that. The problem I've got with Mr. Lucid is that he's using quantum mechanics and general relativity. He's trying to spread these two religions. That's what he's doing, and that's where I have a problem with Mr. Lucid. Okay, and it turns out that like a lot of these internet physicists, mathematical physicists, they go in there and they branch off into things which are which they consider part of their subject matter. And one of those, we covered a couple of those. One was extinction. The other one was whether there's life out there in the universe. And another one is this one, which Mr. Erwin Schrodinger talked about also in his latter days. He talked about life. Schrodinger went from cats that are half dead and half alive to where did the chicken come from? The chicken and the egg situation. And so Mr. Lucid goes through the notions that we have today in biology. He says that's his starting point. He says, well, you know, living thing is something that has organization, grows, reproduces, has a metabolism, homeostasis, response, and adaptation. So he's trying to define what life is, and that's where he's going with it. And it's in response essentially to the question posed by Schrodinger. You know, what is life? Does it belong in physics? Well, I say it does, because remember how we divide science. Science is divided into physics and philosophy. Philosophy deals with reasons and purpose, whereas physics deals with causes and mechanisms. And this falls life. What is life, and working with life, and doing explanations in everything that's alive except the mental part, the purpose and reason. Other than that, I think it belongs squarely within physics. So I think it is within the subject matter, and I do cover it just as much as anybody else. Okay, so that's his starting point. Where does he go from there? Well, he goes to this. He goes to analyze each one of those attributes. And so Mr. Lucid says, well, organization, what is that? Well, made of one or more cells. That's what organization essentially means. Is it made out of cells? Okay. Does it grow? He says it should be able to grow. It interacts with its environment, absorbing energy, whatever energy is. You know, they absorb all this magical stuff, this spirit. It should maintain itself. It should respond to changes, and it should adapt to those changes. Okay. But he says that's what life does. It's not what life is. Okay, so we got to distinguish what life does from what it is. Okay, so what is life? Let's see where he goes with this. So he goes in there and he says, look, he's trying to show that there are things that we don't consider as life, but which have properties of life. And so you have to kind of find out, you know, which ones you're going to select, which ones you're going to reject, which ones are going to qualify as living entities, which ones are not. So he goes through this little list here, and just a very brief one. He says, like fire, fire goes up, right? It grows, reproduces, responds to the environment, absorbs energy. So is fire alive? How about a virus? Virus also, we have this virus now, COVID, right? A virus seems to move, it goes inside the body, it starts growing and reproducing. It does a lot of these things, right? It adapts to its environment. And he was analyzing Game of Life. Okay? And he says, look, that one meets all the conditions of life. It's made of cells, it grows, it consumes, you can see it up there on the right-hand corner, consumes computer energy, maintains themselves, responds, adapts to digital environment, reproduces. It does everything that life does. So is that a living entity there? Would you include it under the living? So this is how he's going to knock these things out. Okay, he's going to try to he wants to eliminate the criteria that the biologists use, because they say they're not universal. Okay, so he's whittling one by one, right? And here's another. He says, he gives this explanation. He says, but these are not biological life. Those things that he just mentioned, fire and the Game of Life, right? He says those are not biological life. So it's not what the checklist was meant for. The list is only for biologists, that list, right? The one he mentioned there. He says, no reason to believe that life on other planets would share these qualities. Worker bees can't reproduce. It's the queen who reproduces, right? So are the workers not alive, So he's got it right. He says, so reproduction is not a necessary criterion for life. Yeah, and I wrote that in my book. I said, grandma, your grandma, when she's 60, 70 years old, does she reproduce? Does that mean she's not alive? So we have many cases, many examples to show that all those criteria cannot be used, or most of them at least, cannot be used to define the word life. So what is life in the alternative? We need to get to the bottom of that, right? And one group that tried to define life is NASA. Okay, and NASA has to define life because they're going to go out there to Mars or to some other planet, maybe, or they try, at least they're thinking about this. And so they're going to have to try to figure out if there's life over there. But before they can find life, they got to define life. What is life? So this is their definition. Again, it's very biological, and I think it was done by a biologist that work at NASA. Self-sustaining chemical system capable of Darwinian evolution. Okay, self-sustaining Darwinian evolution. Yeah, I don't think it was written by a priest. Okay. So that's their definition. That's what they're looking for when they go to Mars, whatever that is. Okay. And but Nick also says, well, yeah, but we got a problem even with that, because look, we have this situation where you say doesn't have to be evolving, it just has to be capable of doing so. And so he also mentions, the Calamarain colony of Star Trek, right? It looks like that smoke that you see up there, okay? Looks like that. It says, is a swirl of ionized gas floating in space, okay? Their life is based on electricity, okay? He's thinking of, some kind of crystal cells or whatever. So it meets a lot of the conditions of life, but would you consider that a living entity? And he says, if we can imagine life like this and the laws of physics don't prevent their existence, then we have to at least be prepared for the possibility. Okay? We shouldn't restrict our definition of life to chemistry because that's what life on Earth looks like. Okay? So we shouldn't just limit life in the universe, which is a good way of doing it, universal law, universal life. Shouldn't limit it just to what we see here on Earth. Maybe there's a broader definition of life that we should take into consideration, okay? And I think that's a good focus for that, right? Okay, so he ends up going back to Schrodinger. He likes Schrodinger's definition. He says, life emerges from complexity. All we need for that is metabolism and homeostasis. Life should consume energy to maintain its own existence through some kind of complex yet ordered process. Ordered? Ordered sounds like an opinion. Sounds like religion. And Erwin, he got that from Schrodinger, who said life, this was his conclusion right after writing that book. He says, life is a constant fight against the increase in entropy. Entropy. Mathematical concept suddenly entered biology. Okay, suddenly life has something to do with entropy, and entropy is what? An opinion. Okay, what is entropy? Okay, so let's find out what entropy is. Okay, and here we have entropy is a measure of order and disorder. That's the short version. It's a little more complex than that, but that gives you an idea. They're talking about order and disorder, and what Mr. Lucid says, the second law of thermodynamics. In a closed system, entropy tends to increase over time. The universe is a perfectly closed system. Well, I don't know about that because, I agree with that, but I don't know if the mathematicians will agree with you because everybody says the universe is infinite. And so, I don't know what he meant by a closed system. If the universe is infinite, meaning that matter extends forever, you got to define that a lot more closely than what he did here. But let's continue. It started in a state of extremely low entropy. It started? What do you mean it started? Well, he's referring to the Big Bang there. You see that big explosion there? That's what he's talking about. He says matter was created from nothing. And of course, nothing is that energy that was there before nothing was there. So we have a little problem with the origin of the world because they go into creationism. It's all these religious people who have occupied the positions of mathematical physics, and they are the ones calling the shots today. Okay. So he starts out with the Big Bang, matter was created, and where is it going? Well, it's on a seemingly endless march towards maximum entropy. Meaning, not to the big crunch because that would be the end of entropy, end of everything. No, it's like it's expanding forever. And he says towards pure randomness, a perfectly uniform universe. So I guess we're going to be filling the blocked universe, as I said the other day. Okay. As part of the universe, life cannot break this law. Law by God, I guess. But it does resist. Okay, so we resist the increase in entropy. We're packages of low entropy, low randomness. What are we resisting? We're resisting the increase in entropy, the increase in this order. Okay? So again, we're going to concepts here. We're going, they're talking about order and disorder. Those are opinions. What's order to you is, what's disorder to you? Like when you look at the universe, Father Universe, for him, it's very well organized. He says, hey, I know where every atom in the universe is. And here it forms part of a star, over there it forms part of a planet, and over there it forms part of an asteroid or whatever. So as far as he's concerned, everything is the proper order. It's us, we see all that chaos, all that disorder in the universe. Okay, we see disorder. It's an opinion. That's what order is. Okay, so yeah, we have a different universe. We don't have this Big Bang universe. We say there's a single thread in all space. That thread coils around, turns into atoms, and all these atoms are interconnected because they're all part of that same system. And there at the bottom left, you see the main proposal, which is the expansion and contraction of the atoms, and that's how they torque the rope, which is what we call light. Very simple system, very straightforward. Mother Nature is not complicated at all. She's the simplest and symmetric woman that you ever seen. Okay, so what does Nick Lucid conclude with? Well, he says the following. He says, drawing a line between alive things and not alive things is a tough challenge. Yeah, especially when you don't define the word life. And then you run into these kind of problems. It might be impossible. Well, no, you got to be able to define the word life. What do you mean it's impossible? What's this impossible? Only for religious people it's impossible. physicists had better be able to define the word life. And I mean by physics is one of the branches, which is biology. What is the study of, what is biology study? What does a biologist study? He studies life. If he doesn't define the word life, I can't call him a biologist. And it turns out we have no biologist on planet Earth because not one has been able to and can define the word life. And that's what he's referring to. Maybe it's impossible. Yeah, so we're doing biology and nobody defined life, which is the study of biology. Great. So go for a definition that is more universal. Okay, I like that. No problem there. Life is only, this is his final definition. I guess he takes essentially Schrodinger's definition, modifies it a little bit, and that's what he puts there. He says, life is only matter that has taken control of its own destiny. Okay? Yeah. Living things actively prevents entropy from increasing within itself, a package of self-maintained order. Again, what is order to you is disorder for me. So I don't know what you're talking about when you say order. Order, order, said Hitler. Yeah, order. Order, said the judge. Order in the court. How do we define life? Let's define it for him. Okay, so we have a scientific definition of life, one that is universal, like he said, one that applies to all living entities. Okay, the universal. Here it is. Living, we begin with the word alive and living because that's the, life is simply a group of them. And it's a natural object that moves against the path of least resistance. Essentially, a living being has the ability to move against gravity. Okay, and yeah, you can move also against water, air, whatever, you know, so you can move against the pull of gravity or the push of the water. That's what a living entity is. No inert object can do that. So a virus is not alive because a virus out here cannot move. It's an inert molecule. That's all it is. When it enters the cell, that's when it reproduces and does its magic because it does it, you know, through this chemical process, chemical reaction. It's a chemical, physical, a little bit of everything in there. But a virus out here is just a molecule. If I can put a molecule, if I can make it big so you can see it, I can put a molecule in my hand, it can't do anything. It just stays there. It's like a rock. It's a molecule. That's all it is. It's like getting a grain of salt and putting it in your hand. Does that move? No, it doesn't. And this is no, and a virus is no different. And fire goes up the walls, but it's not a natural object. First of all, fire is not an object. It's a process of combustion. So you can't use fire. So you can't use fire because fire is not a thing. And it takes 2 years to train people what a thing is. They think it's an easy question, but it's not. A thing is that which has shape. It's not that which you can touch or see. And for sure, a thing is not a process like fire is. Okay? So fire is not an object. You can't use fire as an object or flame for that matter either. I discussed that a couple weeks ago. But it's got to be a natural object, not an artificial one. I mean, we have toy airplanes, they fly. We have real airplanes, they fly, right? And balloons, they fly against gravity. Yeah, but see, it's got to be a natural object. Now, if you want to include artificial things such as the game of life, well, you can do that if you just remove the word natural from there and just say an object that moves against gravity. Fine, if you can do that with the game of life, right? Pixels or whatever. The issue is, what are you going to use that definition for? I mean, does it have any meaning to include pixels under life? Is that what we think of as life? Now you have to have a universal definition that Mother Nature created, you know, and that's got to be only motion against gravity or against the path of least resistance. That's all it is. And so that's it in a nutshell. That's the definition of life. And all these people who are like Nick Lucid, who do quantum mechanics and relativity, they actually do a disservice to science. I mean, I don't blame them for trying to make a buck on YouTube. You know, I think it's, I mean, you have all these girls that they show their boobs out there and they also make a lot of money. And they get more hits than he does. But I think he does a disservice when he essentially regurgitates relativity and quantum and spreads it as truth to people who just come to see him for entertainment. See, the people in Harvard and Cambridge, they don't have too much respect for people like Nick Lucid, because they want to do real science out there, what they call real science. And so when a person like him goes out there and does his little show, and he's doing more entertainment, and people that sign up to his channel do it primarily for entertainment. It's like going to see the circus, the clown at the circus. And the problem is that you feed people the wrong stuff, the irrational stuff. You feed them the quantum atom. You feed them the quantum version of light. You feed them the quantum version of electricity and magnetism, so on. And that's where the crime comes in. And yeah, he's trying to make a buck. He's trying to get up there in the world. That part I don't criticize him for, but the fact that he's spreading this nonsense, I have a problem with. Okay, so much for Nick Lucid. I don't think he's very lucid when it comes to quantum mechanics and general relativity. My only hope is that he does think that he's in a science asylum and he's trying to get out of there or make some money out of it.